Sandra from Danville, Virginia, says, would Aimee ever come to America? And if she did, what do you think her reaction would be?
If Aimee may come to America, and I think she would be very upset with the coffee if she doesn't get to the espresso, because, you know, in 1998 there weren't as many espresso places. So it would have to be. Actually, Renee Friand, her partner, comes to Silicon Valley, or Silicon Valley, in the last book, Murder Below Montparnasse. His first comment was about the coffee. So I'm sorry.
Well, we'll work on that. Nicole from Hagerstown, Maryland, says, how much of the time do you spend in Paris, actually, when you're writing a book?
Good question. Well, I usually go to Paris twice a year for research, usually in the spring and in the fall. And I go because I have to cat sit. My friend has a cat named Emily, and she's 18 years old, and my friend lives on the Canal Saint-Martin. So when my friend needs to go away and Emily needs caring, she'll email me and say, can you work it in the schedule? And I go, I think I can work that in the schedule. So I'm very lucky I can stay with Kathy, my friend. And then I have another friend, Anne-Françoise, who has two daughters, a 3-year-old and an 8-year-old, and sometimes I get to sleep on the couch. But that's how I go to Paris. You know, I'm there, you know, by the grace of friends. I usually spend about a month each time, if possible. But I have a family at home in San Francisco, so I can't be gone, and a dog, so I can't be gone too long. But for me, I don't write so much in Paris as to take notes. Absorb. Exactly. I'm in sponge mode. I record many things, you know, on the bus, people talking. I eavesdrop continuously. I spend my time in that quartier. I may not stay in that quartier, but I'll spend all my time there because it's really important to see what the pulse is. You know, what's the street life, who lives there, what time they come home, how the light hits the walls.
Here's another question from Michelle from Rockville, Maryland. Aimee has evolved slowly until now. Suddenly she's pregnant, which is a big change. How do you see her evolving from there and as a new mother and a crime solver?
Good question. Well, I sort of deal with that in the next book.
We're getting ahead of ourselves, in other words.
No, it's a great question, though. I think she is someone who I sort of base her experiences on my friend Anne-Françoise, who I knew as a singleton. Anne and I used to go out dancing in the Bastille long ago. Now she has 2 children. But I sort of went through the first pregnancy with her in a bit, you know, and when she had her first daughter, I would, when I stayed with her, take her daughter to the crèche, to the infant center, and see how Parisians, you know, I mean, Paris has a great childcare system, you know, for working parents, great subsidies. So I've sort of watched how that happens. And I think my friend Anne, as anyone, struggled with being a single parent and her work, you know. So how is Aimee going to balance the detective agency and her baby, and is she going to be a good mother? Will she turn out like her own mother, a fear that she has? I think that's all issues that are going to come up for her in each book.
Well, so obviously the series is many books yet to come.
Well, we've got 20 arrondissements in Paris. I've only done 14, so...
Now, Frankie in St. Louis wants to know, how many times have you put Aimee in the hospital, and shouldn't she qualify for disability by now?
Well, you know, she's tough, you know. It's true, I know. She gets beat up sometimes.
Well, I guess that goes with the job, though. I mean, she understands what the risks are.
She does. She does.
All right, let's see what we got here. Caitlin from Winchester, Virginia. Do you work with French police or crime experts when you're researching your books? I think you've already kind of addressed that, but I mean, do you work closely, but do you work in any kind of formal capacity with that? I mean, not you're a crime solver, but I mean,
I'm not Castle. No.
Do they have like a media relations branch that you can partner with or go out with, or how does it work?
Originally, it started like that. The media branch. I met some police many years ago, and those police, and then I would say, well, I'm really interested in this district. Do you know anyone? And they would personally, you know, introduce me. So it sort of evolved like that. Actually, one right now, Arnaud Bolesti, is here in Paris. He was in the Brigade Criminelle, but he's here in D.C., and he's working with the French embassy as an attaché. I hope it's okay to say. But I often, and we're good friends, so I often run things by him. But through a policeman, a friend of his, he introduced me to an undercover cop who worked in Pigalle. So I got to go undercover with the cop for an hour, you know, and see Pigalle through a policeman's eyes walking the street.
Are there any parts of Paris you don't want to go into?
I feel very safe at night in Paris. There's certain parts of Barbès that my friend, the cop, says don't go there alone at night, you know. But I always feel okay in Paris. I really do. And
you probably by now know when a cab driver's trying to take advantage of you.
If you can find them in the middle of the night, I would.
Let's see, Joyce from Lancaster, Pennsylvania. Do you describe scenes in your books realistically based on your observations, or do you create them?
Well, because Paris is an exacting muse and it's a real city, I try to write it as I see it. So, of course, it's fiction, but because I'm writing about 1998, the research I did was I was in Paris, I walked down the streets that I write about, and then at home I have phone books from 1996, the Paris Yellow Pages and White Pages, which my friend was throwing away years ago, and I just bought a suitcase and put them in and brought them home. So sometimes I'll go down this street and I'll look in the phone book, and I know there's a dry cleaners, and I look to see by arrondissement, was this dry cleaners here in 1996? Yes. Or if it wasn't, it was here then, it's not here now. So I feel, I want to be as accurate as I can. I look at the newspapers of the day, Le Monde. I see what strikes were going on, because there's always a strike in Paris. What the weather was, what big world event was happening, any dignitaries, what the weather was like, just to get a sense that if you were on the street in Paris in that day with Aimee Leduc, this is what it would feel like. I'm not a slave to each historical event, but it's basically, I want you to feel when you're on the street that this is what it's like.
But there are some some novelists, I should say, who do their research, if you want to call it that, via Google. And they sit at their desk, which is there's nothing wrong with that. Others say, hey, I'm the writer, I get to make it up, and if it happens to fit with the facts, fine. And then there are others who say, if my character is eating foie gras, I want to have eaten that foie gras. Which school do you attend?
I'm with the foie gras school, because of course I want to go to Paris and do research. That's the best part of my job.
Let's see. LaDawn from St. Louis wants to know, she's a first-time Cara Black reader. She says, should I go back to the first book, or can I jump around without missing something important?
That's a good question. With the new book, Murder in Pigalle, I think you can jump right in. But it's a wonderful question to ask, because when you write a series, which I discovered, I never knew I was writing a series, you need to make the characters fresh. I mean, you need to make it familiar with the same cast of characters and make it fresh. So you could jump right in with this story. You could go back to the beginning, Murder in the Marais, and start with that. It depends. If some people say, oh, I was on Ile Saint-Louis, I said, well, you should read Murder on the Ile Saint-Louis. So kind of if you were in the Latin Quarter and you cared for it. So I do write each book to stand alone, yet again to bring all Aimee's cast and crew with her.
Now here's a question. I think we've already touched on this a little bit. Megan from Greensboro, North Carolina. Do you have family roots in France? And how well do you speak French? And what motivated you to build your writing career based on French settings? I think we've kind of hit some of those points already. But do you have familial roots in France?
Maybe a century ago.
Have you ever done a family tree to figure out?
My grandfather did all that a long time ago. Before and I think we were more English. Scottish, but I think there was some French.
Is there anything that when you're in Paris that kind of on some visceral level says, I've been here a long time?
I feel very much the presence of ghosts, and in each of the dedications of my books, it's to the ghosts, because I don't know if they're my family ghosts, but there's something about at night when it's dark and you're walking on those cobbled streets and there's a mist. And I feel the centuries of people. I mean, it's such a densely packed city. Who's lived here for hundreds of years? Who walked these same 17th century streets that I'm walking on at that time? Who was, I feel this feeling. I don't know what it is that comes. It's, how can you not feel it late at night of the, people that walked here, especially in the Marais, I feel that a lot.
I not long ago I saw a video in which you referred, if I'm not mistaken, you said Paris is a museum. So are you a historic preservationist, or does progress sometimes trump history?
I think Paris isn't a museum. I think it's a living, vibrant organism that has this backdrop. it's more of, you know, how contemporary people live in, you know, 17th century buildings with archaic plumbing and non-existent electricity and look fabulous. You know.
And by the way, Aimee looks fabulous, doesn't she?
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, it was really interesting. Once in Paris, a man came up to me at a reading and he said to me, "Oh, you know, my wife likes your books a lot." And I said, "Oh, thank you." He goes, "I like them too. But what I like is that Aimee never lets up and never dresses down." This is a man that said this to me about fashion, and I thought, can I use that quote? And he said yes, but I think it's interesting that men really like the fashion aspect. She's a fashionista.
Well, all right, we have a question from Jack in Waco, Texas. It says, why a Vespa? Why doesn't Aimee get around in some sporty little red convertible?
Oh, because she's Parisian and she doesn't drive. No, Parisians do drive. Because I think Vespas are great, you know, for weaving in and out of the traffic. She was using a bicycle. Of course, that was stolen. But a lot, you know, Vespas are great for getting around those buses and, you know, weaving on the sidewalk, which is what Parisians do.
And it also looks very European. I mean, just, you don't see too many Vespas around here.
No.
There are a lot of cars.
Yes.
Have you ever been, do you ride a Vespa?
I had a small Italian motorcycle many years ago that was called a Moto Guzzi. And I don't know, I rode it from Tunisia to Algeria to when I was, you know, a lot younger. So that was my only experience. And then I had a moped as well in Switzerland. Those are great.
I suppose you probably by now 100 different ways to get around Paris.
Yeah, walking is the best. Walking.
So a lot of tourists, I suspect, are afraid to, again, like we were saying earlier, to go off the beaten path and explore some of the neighborhoods. Is it possible to do that safely?
Oh, I think so. I think the best part of being, you know, I think Edmund White wrote a book about the flaneur, you know, walking in Paris. That's really how you get to know the city, and it's just walking and getting lost, which I do constantly, and discover a new area or neighborhood. And that's the best way to know the city, is to walk it and find yourself in an unexplored district. One time I got on the bus because I was so tired at the end of the day and put my feet up, and the bus was going the wrong direction. But I didn't care. I just stayed on the bus until it came back, and I found a whole new area of Paris. And on the bus, I was so tired. I was watching this elder man. It got on with, I assumed, his grandson, and they were talking. And during the whole bus ride, I sort of saw this, how they spoke to each other, how they related, the sort of intimacy of this grandfather and son, and 3 months later they were in the book. I don't know, they just appeared. So there's a wonderful way to kind of catch the ambiance and the people that live there.
We have actually another question from Tamara in Providence, referring. I told you a moment ago that I'd seen one of your videos. She has seen them also, and it says, "Are you going to do more of? I guess you do the little tours of here's where this scene from this book was set, and here's what happened in this scene." She loves those, and those are very good videos. Are you planning to do more?
Oh, that's my friend Pierre Olivier, and he's now living in Brussels. And he used to love to do that, but unless he comes from Brussels, I don't know. Maybe I can do it with my iPhone, just real simple, you know. I'm probably less professional, but I'm going to, thank you for asking, but I'll try and do some little short 1 minutes on my iPhone.
It is fascinating. The one that I saw, or one of them that I saw, was you were showing us, here's this alley where Aimee was attacked.
Oh, yeah.
And here's the place where she was shot. And see that little place over there? Yeah, that's where they carted her away. And it really lends, it really brings it home how realistic these settings are in your books.
Thank you, yeah. Yeah. People will say, well, I want to go to this area, and I say, really? Because I killed someone there. And they go, oh, and I say, no, it's safe now. The crime has been discovered.
Well, I see our time is just about up, but thank you so much for being with us on Autographaroo today. We'll tell our viewers that you can still get a signed Cara Black book, Murder in Pigalle, and we hope you'll join us again for the next book.
Thank you. Thank you so much.